Hi, I'm Carisha Devlin, co-CEO of Annie's Project. Welcome to the In Plain Talk podcast. In the next few episodes, we'll be exploring and digging deep into the topic of crop insurance. These episodes are sponsored by USDA RMA Award Number RMA 23 CPT 00-13617. The fourth episode in this series is Crop Hail Standalone Policies. I'd like to welcome back Heather Dufault, Extension Educator in Ag Production Systems with the University of Minnesota Extension. And Heather, there may be some who missed our previous episodes, so before we get started, can you give us some information about your background and your work with crop insurance?
I would be glad to, Krisha. If you missed our previous episodes, I am a farmer and egg person through and through. Started from the day I was born with a dairy farm, so definitely have some egg experience in my background. My husband and I also farm on a generational family farm. And before I was in extension, I was also a part of the crop insurance world, selling crop insurance and crop hail standalone policies for about 20 years. So it's a brief look at how I got here and where I'm at. So it's fun to still be able to talk about this stuff. It's still passionate to me because we deal with it on our farm on a day-to-day basis.
Our last three episodes, you really gave us a jump into what crop insurance was, how to find an agent, what do you do if you have a loss. And if those that are listening have not listened to those three episodes, really encourage you to go back and take some time to listen to them. So now we're going to talk about some other policies that are different from the crop insurance policies that we've already discussed. And just to kind of help everybody get on the same page, what is crop hail coverage and how does that differ from crop insurance?
Right. So on our previous episodes, Christian, we talked about the multi-peril crop insurance program, and that program is a government-based program. And it is, no matter where you go, what agent you go to, the rate is always going to be the same for your farm, right? And so that is the biggest difference between a standalone policy. The crop hail coverages are going to cover your crop hail policy is going to cover just a hail loss. They might have some extra perks in their hail policies, but the coverage on that hail policy is going to be just hail. It's going to, it's an additional policy that you can add over and above your multi-peril policy. So you can have them both. You don't have to have one or the other.
It's basically kind of stacking protection on top of each other for whatever may happen to
Absolutely.
whatever you're growing on your farm. So you mentioned that it covers hail damage, and you said it may cover a few other things. What would be some examples of things that it could possibly cover?
Right. Some of the hail policies might have a transit coverage. So like from harvest to the first point of storage. Some might have an additional fire exclusion. It just depends on what company you're working with and what their hail policy has for extra perks, if you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So but the biggest part is that they're going to cover a hail loss and strictly only a hail loss.
So, what examples are there of things that it doesn't cover, just to make sure everybody's on the same page?
Right. So it's not going to cover over a heavy rainfall. It's not going to cover a heavy rainfall unless there was an active hail within that rainfall. It's not going to cover a production loss if we're too dry, or if it's a wind. Now, I'm going to make an exception on wind here for a second because wind could be an additional endorsement depending on what crop you're talking about and what kind of a policy you're talking about with a standalone policy.
So again, that really just points to the importance of making sure that you're fully covered with both types of policies.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I go about getting a crop insurance policy?
Crop hail
Oh,
policy.
yes, thank you for that correction. The crop hail policy. How would I go about getting that?
A crop hail policy, you should be able to go to your regular multi-peril crop insurance agent. Actually, he or she would be probably most likely licensed in a multiple set of companies to offer a crop hail policy. Um, the difference of a again, if we're going to go back to a difference in your earlier question, crop hail policies are different by company. The rates of them, the policies are different by company. So you're going to want to do some investigating to find out which company has the best rate for your operation or how you want to package some things because you
Mm-hmm.
might use multiple companies with crop hail policies. So um, but typically, your multi-peril crop insurance agent would be licensed in multiple companies to
Mm-hmm.
offer you a hail standalone hail insurance policy.
This is another good reason that you want to make sure you have a good agent
Ah,
that really there has a strong knowledge base that can help you with all aspects of insuring that
absolutely.
crop.
Yes, that agent, if they're working just with crop insurance, they're going to have that strong knowledge of, how does this hail policy work versus this one. I think there's about 35 different types of policies, if I'm not mistaking, or maybe even more than that. So you can go from a hail policy, which covers a hail policy is going to cover you for a dollar amount of coverage per acre, versus your multi-peril policy is going to cover you on like your bushels and your production history. So when we're talking about a hail insurance policy, we're going to look at how many dollars of coverage per acre do you want to have, and it we're going to build that all together, and we're going to look at maybe the two of them together to make a super great product to make sure, like you said, that all bases are covered and we stack that coverage appropriately.
So to me, it just sounds like a risk management plan. You're doing what you can to manage the risk of loss on those crops that you're raising.
Absolutely.
So is crop hail coverage, is that available in every state? Or is there any states where it's not available?
That's a really good question, Krisha. I would assume, and it's making an assumption on my part, but I would assume that there is crop hail coverage in most of the states. So what I would suggest is, again, the communication piece with your crop insurance agent, wherever you're at in the nation, making sure that you're communicating with him or her so that you know what's available for additional coverage. There might be areas of the country that are not prone to hail policies, but they might be prone to some wind damage, and there might be another type of a standalone product that they might have that fits that particular area.
So, not to muddy the waters or anything, but there are some other add-ons that you could possibly get to add, and that is standalone programs. So, I'll do a two-part question. Can you define what a standalone program is, and then what private standalone programs are available?
A standalone program is something that's going to be, if you want to think of it as like a similar to an endorsement to a policy, but it's going to cover just something that's specific. It's you might have to have a loss on a different policy in order for this policy to kick in, but it's covering just a specific purpose. Okay. Um, some examples of those standalone products might be like There used to be a product that was called an added price option, and I think it's still out there on some crops, but not every crop. But those are available through the multiple companies that are out there, not that don't necessarily have, you know, the federal crop insurance policies. Um, we talked a little bit earlier about, if there was a wind issue. I know in my area we have some wind policies on corn. So it might be a wind with a hail component policy that it's going to then cover the wind that happens with the hail storm. So it's a separate standalone kind of type of thing. Um, I think some of the supplemental coverage options, if we carry ARC County or PLC within our FSA programs, those are also called standalone products that are available through our multi-peril through our multi-peril policies with those companies, but those are also called standalone products. So that it just really does make the world really muddy. It's as clear as mud, right? But it's talking with your agent, figuring out which option and which endorsement or which standalone coverage works best for your operation.
And is that coverage available in every state, those standalone policies?
It would depend on what's available in the state. So I don't know if I have a clear answer, a yes or a no. I'm going to go back to, talking with your agent and finding out what's available in your county, in your state, in your region area.
All of these policies, it is a lot to wrap your mind around, but it is also, at least in my thinking, it's reassuring to know that there are options out there, and it's just picking what's going to be right for your ag operation. So, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners? Just kind of
Um,
maybe wrapping up the last few episodes that we have had with you.
right. Um, you know, the one thing with the crop hail policy that I don't think I talked about yet is that some of these standalone policies are not subsidized by the government. They are separate products, where your multi-peril crop insurance program is a subsidized product. So, knowing and understanding kind of where those subsidies are to help you out will help as well. I know in our situation, we do buy hail insurance on our small grains and our, row crops, just because we are in a hail prone area. So we do stack that coverage on top of our multi-peril coverage. That's something that we do, and we do a combination of a deductible in there so that, it fits our multi-peril policy as well. So if we would have a total loss, then we would have payment from our crop hail policy and our multi-peril policy. But fortunately, that doesn't happen very often. I want to knock on wood, because we don't want those things to happen. We want to have a crop to produce and sell
Exactly.
instead of having to be paid a claim on. So, um, my final thought is going to be that communication key again, Krisha. It's just so important that we just make sure that we talk to our agent and check in with them, and making sure that everything is going the way it's supposed to on our policies.
Well, Heather, thank you so much for giving us such a thorough introduction into crop insurance. And for those of you that have enjoyed listening to Heather and her vast knowledge and explanation of how the world of crop insurance works, you can hear more of her. Heather was actually a guest on our In Plain Talk webinar series, and that webinar was recorded, and you can go view it on our Annie's Project YouTube channel. In that webinar, Heather goes into more detail about crop insurance and record keeping, and what are the things that you really need to keep track of. So I would really encourage you to go and check that webinar out. So next week, we'll be shifting gears and talking about marketing and crop insurance and how they go hand in hand. So be sure to join us for marketing strategies and crop insurance.